I never thought a woman holding a latte could start an actual war in the woods, but that blue Jeep of hers came flying down our private hunting trail like she owned the forest, and by the time it was over, she'd leave covered in mud, humiliated and stripped of every ounce of that fake HOA power she worshipped. I'm telling you, this wasn't just a fight about land. It was a lesson about boundaries taught the hard way. It started quiet, peaceful, the kind of fall morning where the air smells like pine and old smoke. Grandpa and I were setting up the deer blind, hanging tarps, hammering nails. He had his dented thermos in hand, sipping black coffee like it was motor oil when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I turned, and there it was, a shiny blue Jeep bouncing down the trail, dust swirling behind it like a storm. She slammed to a stop near the oak tree, kicked her door open and stepped out like she was serving eviction papers to Mother Nature. Her name was Becky Lormont, vice president of the Hillside Meadows HOA from 2 ridges over. She wore designer sunglasses, hiking boots that had never touched dirt before, and that smug suburban look that screams, "Rules are rules." She waved her phone like a badge and shouted, "You can't build permanent structures here. This violates community standards." I froze hammer midair looking at Grandpa. He didn't even glance up, just kept sipping coffee. Then slowly he set the thermos down and said in that calm, steady voice, "Ma'am, this ain't your community. This is private hunting land." Becky smirked like she was about to teach a child math. "Actually," she said, tapping her screen, "the extended zoning map for our HOA includes the entire ridge and adjacent trails, which means this area falls under our jurisdiction." Grandpa blinked once. Jurisdiction. He tasted the word like it was rotten fruit. Then he chuckled. "Lady, this land's been in my family since Theodore Roosevelt thought bears were furniture. You think a town meeting and a newsletter gives you rights out here?" "Oh, I don't think," she said, smiling wide. "I know." Then she started snapping photos of our deer blind, the tool shed, even my old truck parked by the trees. I leaned toward Grandpa. "She's serious." He didn't answer. He just picked up his knife and began sharpening a handful of rusted railroad spikes. The metallic scrape echoed through the trees. Becky stayed long enough to hand us a stack of violation notices printed on cheap paper and stapled like kindergarten projects. Grandpa tossed them into the fire. Becky gasped, horrified. "You can't do that." He took a slow sip. "I just did. Next time I'll roast a marshmallow over it." She left in a huff, muttering about enforcement escalation. But karma works quick. When she backed out, her tire clipped a fallen log Grandpa had set months ago. Her iced mocha exploded across her windshield. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my hammer. "She's coming back, isn't she?" Grandpa grinned. "Oh, she'll be back. But next time she won't get out so easy." That night, while I grilled venison, he disappeared into the shed and came back carrying a small wooden crate. Inside were 6 old railroad spikes, heavy and rusted. "These came off the abandoned track north of here," he said. "Built to stop trains. Reckon they'll stop a Karen, too." "Grandpa," I said slowly, "you're not planning to." He waved me off. "Not to hurt, just to remind." By dawn, we were at the trail's entrance. He called it Becky's Bend. We laid the spikes in a neat scatter, covered them with pine needles, and walked away. Later that afternoon, we heard her Jeep again, engine roaring like an insult. Then came the pop, the hiss, the sound of an ego deflating. She jumped out screaming, "Sabotage! You're both going to jail." Grandpa stepped from the trees, calm as a saint. Maybe he said, "But you'll need cell service first." I raised my phone. "Smile, Becky. You're on camera." She stormed off, dragging in Deputy Carl, a young cop with the heart of a puppy and the brain of one, too. She cried, pointed, claimed harassment. Carl gave us a friendly warning and drove her home. But I saw it in her eyes. She'd just recruited her first soldier. 2 days later, she was back. This time with folders, citations, codes, stuff she barely understood. She quoted something called Scenic Regulation 4B. Grandpa folded his arms. "Ma'am, there ain't another house within 3 miles. What neighborhood you talking about?" Carl tried to mediate. "Mr. Walters, maybe we can talk this out. Becky says her HOA has documentation." Grandpa pointed to the old oak. "That tree marks my line. Been that way since 1911. Find me one county map that says different." Becky's jaw clenched. You're violating safety codes, harassing wildlife, starting unauthorized fires. Grandpa calmly handed Carl a permit. Issued last week. Valid till midwinter. Go ahead, call Bill at the department. Carl read it frowning. Becky turned red as a stop sign. She looked at me. He's been recording me. That's a privacy violation. I shrugged. Public confrontation, private land. And don't worry, I blurred your face. She left furious, but fate tripped her again, literally. Another flat tire. I swear the woods themselves were tired of her. That evening she went nuclear. Posted online, dangerous men squatting on public trail. Accused us of violence, called Grandpa a rural extremist. We wouldn't have known if Grandpa's old friend Bert hadn't texted screenshots with, "Looks like war boys." The next morning a drone buzzed over camp like a metal mosquito. Jared, my cousin, climbed a tree and smacked it clean out of the sky with a rake. It crashed into the mud. From somewhere near the trailhead came Becky's voice. "That's federal property," Grandpa yelled back. "If it flies lower than the squirrels, it's fair game." That night she tried to prank call us pretending to be a ranger. Problem is, the real ranger. Tom was a friend. When Grandpa called him, Tom laughed so hard he nearly choked. Becky again. "Tell her to stay the hell off your land." At that point, Grandpa pulled out a map. "We're not fighting fire with fire," he said, sketching red X's. "We're fighting stupid with creativity." He labeled the sections Mudslide Alley, No Signal Curve, and The Pit. When Becky came back that weekend, she was wearing an orange vest with Community Enforcement written on duct tape across the back. She had binoculars, a clipboard, and the confidence of a mall cop. "You are officially in violation," she yelled, handing Grandpa another folder. He said nothing, just pulled a laminated copy of the deed signed and notarized in 1911. She frowned. "This doesn't mean anything. Historical ownership doesn't override modern jurisdiction." Grandpa tapped the county seal. "It does here. This ain't your pool gate, Becky. This is hunting ground." She stuffed the paper into her folder like a receipt and started live streaming. "This is Becky Lormont, documenting rural aggression," I whispered. "Did she just call for backup like this is a zombie movie?" Grandpa smirked. "Then it's time for side quests." That night, Jared built a scarecrow old clothes fake badge, one of her flyers taped to the chest. We set it by the trailhead with a sign, "Official Trail Marshal, trespassers will be laughed at." The next morning, Becky spotted it and screamed like we'd hung an effigy. Within hours, she posted online about militia intimidation tactics. Bert texted, "Militia, you mean the scarecrow." We realized then she wasn't fighting for justice. She was fighting for control. A week later, she returned again, this time with backup 5 HOA volunteers with clipboards and fanny packs. She called it a community safety inspection. Grandpa radioed me from the cabin. "They look like ants on a hot skillet. You want phase 2? "Affirmative," I said. Hidden speakers we'd planted came alive, growling bears, whispering voices. "You shouldn't be here." The volunteers froze. Then one of our camouflaged mannequins fell out of a tree. They screamed, bolted, and vanished into the woods. Becky yelled after them, "Come back! We need soil readings." But she was alone when she stepped into Grandpa's newest invention, a spring-loaded metal grate that popped up and trapped her like a cartoon villain. I'll admit it, I laughed till I cried. Grandpa appeared moments later wearing a fake sheriff badge. "Ma'am," he said, "you are hereby detained for theatrical and educational purposes." "This is unlawful," she shrieked. "Actually," he said, "it's performance art. Titles, Authority Meets Unmoved Mountain." "You're playing yourself." I stepped out clapping. "You have the right to remain ridiculous," I told her. "Anything you say can and will be laughed at in future HOA meetings." She cursed, kicked the spars, and finally stomped off. That night her video went viral, 500,000 views in a day. Memes everywhere. The internet crowned her Ranger Becky queen of bad decisions. I thought it was over. I wanted it to be. But she had one tantrum left. The next morning, Grandpa handed me drone photos. She'd hired a crew with a bulldozer cutting a new trail through the eastern woods, through the very spot where Grandpa's old dog was buried. Something in him broke. No yelling, no cussing, just quiet. He walked to the shed and pulled out an old wooden box. Inside, Coyote sent expired fireworks, a taxidermy raccoon, and a baby doll with glowing red eyes. That night we went to work. We lined the new trail with those props set motion sensors, a hidden sprinkler, and a wooden sign that read, "The land remembers." When Becky came back at sunrise with her workers, it all came alive. The smell, the sounds, the flashes. Fireworks cracked under the dirt. The doll blinked red through the mist. The raccoon launched confetti. The crew screamed and bolted. Becky tried to stand her ground, but the sprinkler drenched her head to toe. She slipped, landed in the mud, and crawled back to her Jeep like a ghost fleeing a curse. The next day she returned with a camera crew trying to film a documentary about rural extremism. But Grandpa was waiting. He walked right into the shot holding the original deed edges yellowed, stamped, and signed by his grandfather. "This land's been in my family longer than you've been breathing," he said. "You want a scandal? Here's one. A suburban narcissist trying to annex private property for her fantasy HOA kingdom." The cameraman looked at Becky. "Is that true?" She mumbled something about pending approvals. But it was over. They packed up, drove off, and she never came back. That night by the fire, the woods were quiet again. Jared roasted marshmallows. Grandpa carved something into a piece of oak. Private land. Not for sale. Not for bullies. He set it by the firelight, leaned back, and said softly, "Some people never learn boundaries until they run headfirst into them. And that's the truth, because out here justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears boots and smells faintly of skunk spray."